World War II saw some of the most legendary tanks ever built. The German Tiger, the Soviet T-34, the American Sherman. But not all nations were so lucky. Imagine being crammed inside a metal box so thin that even a machine gun could tear through it, and then being told this was your tank. That was the reality for Italian crews of the Carro Armato L3. Today, we're diving into why being a crew member of this tiny tankette might have been one of the worst jobs in the entire war. The L3 wasn't even a true tank. It was a tankette, based on the British Carden-Loyd design from the 1920s. It weighed just over 3 tons, had a crew of 2, a driver and a commander's gunner, and was armed with 2 machine guns. That's it. No cannon, no anti-tank weapon, just a pair of guns that quickly became useless against real tanks. Its armor, a maximum of 12 millimeters thick, which was barely enough to stop rifle fire, and completely worthless against any anti-tank weapons. Crews jokingly called it a mobile coffin, though for many, the joke didn't last long. Life inside an L3 was miserable. There was no suspension worth speaking of, meaning every bump of rough terrain rattled the crew. The interior was unbearably cramped. The commander not only had to fire the weapons, but also acted as the radio operator, if a radio was even installed. Ventilation was poor, and in hot climates like North Africa, temperatures inside the steel box could climb to dangerous levels. With no real protection and almost no visibility, the crew had the unenviable task of driving directly into battle, knowing they stood little chance of survival. Against infantry with little to no anti-tank weapons, the L3 could be effective. It was used during the Italian invasion of Ethiopia, where its machine guns and mobility gave it an edge. But in World War II, against modern armies, it was hopelessly outdated. In Spain, during the Civil War, L3s faced Soviet-supplied T-26 tanks and were shredded. In North Africa, they went up against British armored cars and early Crusader tanks, and the results were disastrous. Entire companies of L3s were wiped out in minutes. Crews often described feeling like they were being sent into battle with a death sentence. Perhaps the hardest part wasn't the heat, the noise, or the discomfort. It was the knowledge that the L3 was simply outclassed. Tank crews are trained to trust their machines, but for Italian soldiers, the L3 was a liability. Stories circulated of crews abandoning their vehicles before combat even began, preferring to fight on foot rather than sit inside what felt like a rolling coffin. Morale was understandably low, and facing better-equipped opponents only deepened that hopelessness. In the grand sweep of World War II history, the Carro Armato L3 is remembered less as a tank and more as a cautionary tale. For the men who had to fight in them, it meant battling not only the enemy, but also the limitations of their own machine. Thin armor, weak firepower, unbearable conditions, and almost no chance of survival against real tanks. While the war produced many legendary machines, the L3 stands as a reminder that not every crew had the privilege of fighting in one.